than 3 million people are infected with HIV in Nigeria, the second highest number in the world after South Africa.
Well, no doubt this figure is worrisome. Hence, any publicized effort aimed at developing either a vaccine or a cure for the disease often attracts a great deal of interest and scrutiny worldwide.
Well, right from the time HIV/AIDS was detected in Nigeria in the early 80s, medical experts made attempts to produce medicines that will treat the dreaded disease.
In the mid-90s, there was, of course, Dr. Jeremiah Abalaka here in Nigeria, who claimed that he had developed a vaccine for HIV and AIDS, but his claims were later discredited.
Well, part of this discredit means there also seems to be on now as a professor, recently a professor of veterinary medicine and clinical virology from Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, Umodike, that's in Abia State. Professor Madueke Ezeibe said he had discovered a drug which can treat as well as cure AIDS.
Well, the announcement by the professor has elicited reactions from various quarters. And in particular, we have had the reactions from medical experts, including Nigeria's Minister of Health, Professor Isaac Adewale.
Yes, Kingsley, the minister was quoted to have said that the federal government has mandated the National Institute for Medical Research and the College of Medicine in Ibadan to actually do a proper study of the two claims, that's that of the other person mentioned earlier, that's like, and also
we have the professor who will be with us in the studios later this morning to discuss the issues, what processes or procedures he adopted, and then his response to the particular queries raised by these other regulatory agencies.
Well, we hope that the process will help him take you through, so it won't seem as if I would make some discovery. Some outside world experts will actually take it on, like some other things that have been discovered here. My name is Blessing Abu. I welcome you to the program coming to you on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, NTA. It's a live program, and we hope you find your time very interesting with us today.
Well, I'm Kingsley Osadolo, and I join Blessing also welcoming you to the program, reaching you on the network service of Africa's largest television network. Now, with the course of the program, we shall have our regular companion segments, including newspaper review, business, sports, and others. But we'll also be taking, in our second segment for conversation, a review of the just ended Africa Cup of Nations 2017. Nigeria, of course, was absent, and Cameroon triumphed over Egypt. In the meantime, we're going over to the newsroom to join our caster, Tessie Justin Bissong. Hi, Tessie.
Good morning, Kingsley. Good morning, Nigeria, and welcome to the news. Organized labor unions took to the streets in Abuja and Lagos, calling on the federal government to intensify its fight against corruption at all levels of government, while commending President Muhammadu Buhari for taking up the fight. They urge him not to relent in ensuring that needed infrastructure that will bring development and growth are in place.
It's important and fundamental for all Nigerians to be on the same page. We realize people are chasing shadow instead of chasing actually the substance. So the substance of the issue is the challenge of good governance. And we thought that we should represent these teaming members that are actually at the receiving end.
So we are here to identify with the government in its quest to fight corruption. It's not all about saying we have no money or there is no money. It is how these resources are managed. I mean, you can imagine a situation where when there was resources, salaries were not paid. All of these things we're talking about were not made. But at the leanest time in the history of this country, we have made those payments, ensured that salaries of workers, even in the states, are paid, ensured that those refunds are tied to payment of salaries at a time of the leanest purse that the federal government has had in very many years.
The 2017 budget proposal for the running of the State House is 18.08% lower than provision for 2016. Permanent Secretary State House Jalal Arabi said this is a reflection of Nigeria's current economic situation.
This will now eradicate the practice of abandoning projects or starting white elephant projects. not completing them and moving forward.
Wonderful presentation, as well as the clarification that you have made certain points clearer for us.
The Federal Ministry of Agriculture has fashioned out modalities that will enable agricultural undergraduates cultivate a farmland on campus with 50% of academic scores based on practicals before graduation. Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development, Audu Obe, stated this at the budget defense before legislators.
We have had too many people who studied vet medicine and never practiced agriculture after graduation. And we don't want the universities teaching management, accounting, law, even political science. That's not what they were set up for.
It is our intention to do the best we can in the face of the desire of the present administration to reposition agriculture.
We must, as a matter of necessity, encourage them by way of training and empowering them in various aspects of agriculture.
Information and Culture Minister Lai Mohammed has advocated the engagement of senior citizens as volunteers in service delivery. This was during an audience granted to the Senior Citizens Advocacy Network of Nigeria.
I believe that even for your own health and for your own long life and good health, you need to be engaged.
No nation enjoys accelerated and sustainable development without an attitudinal change. Therefore, the Change Begins With Me campaign, spearheaded by your ministry, is fully supported by Sakanan.
Nigeria has officially been integrated into the Economic Community of West Africa States and the European Union Small Arms Project. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa reports that the ceremony was held at the ECOWAS Secretariat, Abuja.
The ECOWAS Commission has contributed an amount of $300,000 as counterpart funds to this project.
Nigeria has demonstrated the political will to support the implementation of the said ECOWAS Convention by establishing, since April 2013, the Presidential Committee on Small Arms and Light Weapons.
The Nigerian Armed Forces has described as malicious and misleading the online story which states that the Nigerian military is out to exterminate adherents of a particular religion using surrendered Boko Haram terrorists. A statement by Acting Director, Defense Information, Brigadier General Rabi Abubakar, indicates that the Nigerian Armed Forces are constituted by Nigerians of all tribes and religious affiliation, and everyone knows Boko Haram is enemy to all, and so to think of using them against the people is senseless. The statement advises the public to be wary of such toxic messages and those behind the dissemination of falsehood, hate, and divisive messages online to desist in the best interest of national peace and security. And that's the news. Thanks for watching. Good Morning Nigeria continues in a moment with Kingsley and Blessing.
If you hear a bomb explosion or gunshots of an active shooter, that might be a terror attack. At such times, always remember 3 action words: run, hide, report. Don't try to run towards the terror scene to save the situation, because there might be a second bomb blast or another attack. Run far away and take cover. Make sure you are safe first. Yes, it is in our nature to sympathize over the hurt, but remember, only trained personnel can help in such situations. When in a secured environment, promptly call relevant authorities and help will come. For anonymous reporting, call 09630-3250-5 or 0813-2222-106. If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
What makes a Naija mom powerful?
I encourage my kids to learn new things. And if they get hurt, I rely on the power of my Dettol's 1 capful. To fight germs, it's like my own first aid kit.
My family needs protection from germs. I use the power of Dettol's One Capsule to disinfect surfaces and clothes to keep them clean and safe from germs.
I trust the power of Dettol's One Capsule for bathing. The power of Dettol's One Capsule protects from up to 100 illness-causing germs.
Millions of powerful Niger moms use the power of Dettol's One Capsule to protect their families. Be a powerful Niger mom with Dettol. Be 100% sure.
The federal government's social investment program has begun. The poorest and most vulnerable in the land get 5,000 naira monthly, and phase 1 has started in 9 states of the federation. 200,000 unemployed graduates have been engaged in the NPower Volunteer Corps, designed to engage 500,000 people. 5.5 million children will be fed regularly in the homegrown school feeding program, which kicked off in 3 states last year, with 9 more to be added this year. And under the Government Enterprise and Empowerment Program, GEEP, thousands of cooperatives, market women, farmers, and enterprising youth have been receiving between 10,000 and 100,000 naira soft loans since November 2016. The Social Investment Program has begun. It can only get better. We promise change. Change is here.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria. Let's take a look at some business stories. The federal government, through the Asset Management Company of Nigeria, is taking over Arik Airways. For other business stories, let's join Amina Najim.
The federal government of Nigeria Thursday announced it has priced its offering of $1 billion U.S. aggregate dollar principal amount of notes under its newly established Global Medium-Term Notes Program, also known as Eurobond. The notes will bear interest at a rate of 7.875% and will mature on the 16th of February 2032 with a bullet repayment of the principal. A statement signed by the Director of Press to the Ministry of Finance, Salisuna Inna Dambata, indicates that the proceeds would be used to fund capital expenditure in the 2016 budget. The notes were approximately 8 times oversubscribed, with orders in excess of $7.8 billion compared to a pre-issuance target of $1.0 billion, demonstrating strong market appetite for Nigeria. This is despite continued volatility in emerging and frontier markets and shows confidence by the international investment community in Nigeria's economic reform agenda. The notes will be admitted to the official list of UK's Listings Authority and available to trade on London Stock Exchange regulated market. Commenting on the successful pricing, the Minister of Finance, Mrs. Kemi Adeosun, said, Nigeria is implementing an ambitious economic reform agenda designed to deliver long-term sustainable growth and reduce reliance on oil and gas revenues while reducing waste and improving the efficiency of government expenditure. The notes represent Nigeria's 3rd Eurobond issuance, following issuance in 2011 and 2013. The National Economic Reconstruction Fund, NEFund, a body set to provide needed medium to long-term financing to valuable small and medium-scale production enterprises, is seeking the support of EFCC to recover loans earlier mismanaged. Acting Managing Director of the agency, Dr. Ezekiel Oseni, on a visit to the EFCC headquarters, expressed concern over the non-payment of funds collected and called on the watchdog to help recover those overstayed funds.
We have over 17.5 billion outstanding loans that have been given to customers and they have refused to pay back. Out of this 17.5 billion, it will be interesting for you to know that 8% of these customers account for 81% of their standing unpaid loans.
With the economy on its knees due to a biting recession, Oseni says it has become imperative for a stronger interagency collaboration to recover funds out there and put them into proper use to get the Nigerian economy back on track. The federal government has taken over the management of Arik Airways and announced a lifeline to help keep the distressed company afloat. AMCON, explained that government's decision is in line with its desire to sanitize the country's aviation sector. AMCON said the development will afford Arik Airlines, which is the largest local carrier in the country, to return to regular undisrupted operations, avoid job losses, protect investors and stakeholders' funds, as well as ensure safety and stability in the already challenged aviation sector. Under the new arrangement, the airline would be managed by a veteran aviation expert, Roy Ilegbodu, with the receivership of a senior advocate of Nigeria, Olusheye Opasanya. And the local bus resumed downward trend Thursday after a short-lived upward movement in a midweek session. The all-share index dipped by 0.54%. Next is a graphic summary of figures from the NAC. And that concludes the business package. I am Amina Nujaim.
Thank you very much, Amina, for the business package. Next now for us is a look at the headlines in some of today's newspapers.
So much in the newspapers, and Bayo Atebi is already seated to take a look at them with us. Good morning to you, Bayo.
Good morning, Casey, and good morning, Nigeria.
All right, let's begin our review this morning by taking a look at the front page of This Day newspaper. This Day newspaper above the nameplate has two headlines. Federal government takes over troubled Arik. AMCON says airline too important to fail. But it has a rider. It says carrier vows to challenge court-ordered takeover. Now below that, another headline: establishment of beneficial ownership register in the offing to unmask real owners of companies. Now, establishment of beneficial ownership register in the offing to unravel real owners of companies. Now, just below the nameplate, after phone calls, Saraki and Dogara assure Nigerians Buhari is in top form. And of course there is a rider to that, IBB is of course the former president, also speaks to the president, and photos of Tinubu and Akonde's London visit released. You can see the photograph there on the front page of This Day newspaper. Both Akonde and Tinubu are leaders of the All Progressive Congress. Well, list story for the paper is on the economy. Nigeria's $1 billion Eurobond records 8 times oversubscription, signposting investor confidence. And shames analysts talking down the economy. That's the rider to that. Then, also on the front page, lastly for us, by the way, from This Day would be Buhari replaces soldiers with DSS operatives as bodyguards in Aso Rock. Details of the story can be found inside.
Okay, let's go quickly now to the New Telegraph. Similar stories like you have read from your paper of This Day. I'll start off with a story on the business. AMCON, of course, that's the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, takes over Arik Air, over 200 billion naira debt. Saves 2,000 jobs. And another rider, airline vows to challenge government action in court. Still with the business, NNPC loses 2.2 billion naira to illegal pipeline tappers. That's what we find on page 6. Below the nameplate for the New Telegraph, you have this number of stories. EFCC recovers 1.25 billion naira from public servants. That's what is on page 7. And the story about the Eurobond is trending on page 30 and is captured this way on the front page of the New Telegraph. Nigeria's $1 billion Eurobond 8 times oversubscribed. Wike, of course, is the Rivers State governor. Federal government's blackmailing Rivers to drive away investors. You find that story on page 10. Borough unites ex-militant ahead of Oshibajo's visit to Bayelsa. You find that story on page 6. For the New Telegraph, the leading headline is Buhari sacks army as bodyguards in Aso Rock. I think Kingsley took that as well. Replaces soldiers with DSS operatives. There are 2 riders to that story. Saraki Dogara. We spoke with President on Wednesday. And the Christian Association of Nigeria to Nigerians. Let's pray for Buhari's quick recovery. And just similar to what we had on the front page of this day, the photograph of the president with the 2 visiting APC leaders is right there on the front page. Tinubu Akonde visit president in London. That's how it's captured there. Okay, to other stories. Gunmen storm Lagos estate, abduct landlord and demand 100 million naira. You find that story on page 34. 2019, PDP, AD, PRP, SDP, others form new platform. With rider Ghana, Falaye, Balarabe vow to tackle APC. All the details you find on page 7. Right.
Yes. The photographs you're talking about, there are 2 of them. There's one, they were sitting on the sofa when he was receiving, and the other looks as if either he was welcoming them or seeing them off. They were tweeted by the presidency yesterday. But the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, had said he spoke with the president. He tweeted, Nigeria President at Muhammadu Buhari, he was in good spirit and joked about my working late into the night as usual. On his part, the Speaker, Yakubu Dogara, also said he spoke with the President. His media aide, Turaki Hassan, says Speaker Dogara got President Muhammadu Buhari's call at about 9 p.m. and they spoke for 5 minutes. They discussed many national issues, including ways to ensure food security. And guess what? The social media is at it again. You recall that the man who walked into an aircraft at Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, they later on splashed on the World Wide Web that he was conveyed away in an air ambulance. The latest is that they say he has gone to perform lesser Hajj in Mecca and he's due to return on Saturday. But they forgot to say that he had resurrected. AMCON, the Asset Management Corporation of Nigeria, has taken over the assets and management of distressed Arik Airline. But the Arik Airline says it is challenging that in a court. AMCON has appointed Captain Roy Akwebo as the aviation expert under receivership. Minister of State for Aviation Hadi Seriki says this will stabilize the operation of the airline and enable it to return to undisrupted operations.
All right, Bayo. Well, that's it. Arik has gone into receivership, as we indicated. It's not liquidation.
Not liquidated.
That's right, which is a different issue. The airline has been having trouble since most of last year over aviation fuel supplies because there were no credit lines extended to it by the suppliers who insisted on cash payment. There are varying figures as to how much Arik Air is owing its creditors. Some say 200 billion, others also say 300 billion naira. But the headline from this day was saying that the minister indicated that the airline was too important to fail. So let's see how the rescue effort...
That's the rationale for the lifeline.
Manifest, that's correct. Excuse me, let's take a look at the Punch newspaper now. Leslie?
Okay, for the Punch newspaper, AMCON takes over Arik as the FCC grills Aromeni Hide. That's still on the Arik saga. Over 300 billion naira debts. That is the way the Punch is reporting it, different from the 200 billion that I read earlier. Will challenge the takeover in court. This is coming from the airline. But just above the nameplate, you have Tinubu Akonde meet Buhari in London. Of course, we are already taking that. But to the right-hand corner of the screen, you have probe. Labour leaders storm Villa and also want a looter of the arms impeached. Well, moving down, you have the photograph. Well, to some other stories now. The EFCC recovers 3.2. Well, that's some stories.
Yeah, well, that's, the EFCC, just by the way, let me help out. Listen, so the EFCC recovered some $9.72 million and 750,000 British pounds sterling and 1.5 billion naira in 14 days. That's 2 weeks This is attributed to Mago, who is the acting chair of the anti-graft agency. Now, the other headlines there on the at the foot of the front page of the Punch: Shiites protest in Kaduna demand Zakzaki's release, and PDP and 4 others meet team up against APC.
Okay.
Well, the figure you were trying to quote was $9.72 million and $9.72 million and 750,000 pounds sterling allegedly recovered from the home of a former GMD of NNPC in Kaduna. In the same 2 weeks period, another 1.5 billion was recovered from a public servant. This was when the chairman of the EFCC was briefing the House Committee on Financial Crime. He said within the period of 2 weeks, the EFCC has recovered about 5 billion in cash and in the home of just 2 individuals. Talking about organized labor, yesterday it's no news that there was protest in Lagos and Abuja. In Lagos, they visited the office of the governor and they are demanding that the nation be restored, the economy of the nation be restored, because life is becoming too costlier for people. In Abuja, they also paraded around and went to the Aso Villa and also at the National Assembly. At the National Assembly, the Senate President was the one that received them. The Trade Union Congress said they want an upward review of the national minimum wage and a confirmation of the acting chairman of the EFCC. They said Nigeria has been a major victim of corruption and bad governance, and therefore they want a bailout of funds of salaries that was given to state government, and many workers are still not paid. The Senate President said he took time to address them and said that many of the challenges they are complaining about, they are aware of. Exchange rate is high, the cost of things are too high, and salaries are the same, that the Senate will take appropriate time to address it. They presented an 18-point demand to the acting president at the National Assembly, and part of it was that the public officer should forfeit assets not declared whenever it is discovered.
Okay. All right, let's take the Nigerian pilot. Nigerian pilot below the nameplate, the TUC and LSC NLC protest has already been reported, and Bayo's already discussed that. President's health, that's the kicker. Don't join bandwagon of rumor mongers, but that's the JNI tells imams and ummahs. Details of the story can be found on page 6. The list story has a kicker: food price hike. Blame police, army, and customs. That's attributed to Ogbe. Ogbe is Minister of Agric. And then below that, you have also, below the photograph there, you also have federal government's $1 billion Euro bond oversubscribed by 800%. We already took that story from other papers as well. And then on the front page, you have a window of headlines. Federal government's lawyer withdraws from Supreme Court justice trial. Details on page 8. And on page 7, Edo governorship. Tribunal grants PDP request to recount ballot papers. Corruption, bane of Nigeria's development. That's according to Senate President Saraki. And banks to support export with 25 billion naira equity funding annually.
Okay. Quickly now to the Daily Trust. Aside the other items we've taken, just a few more looking to now. Daily Trust, just below the nameplate, you have the story on Jai's Bank listing, 29.4 billion naira on stock exchange. You find that on page 13. The other story on the federal government taking over Agric has been taken, so I'll move further down the paper. The photograph of the president, which was what you were pointing at that time. This time around, they are indoors with the president as the 2 APC leaders. Labor protests in Abuja, Lagos over rising inflation. Also, we had already touched on that. But to the other windows of headlines, Oshibajo meets security anti-graft agencies heads. That's what we find on page 5. And back to the Minister of Agriculture, Ogbe says 80% imported tomato paste poisonous. You find our story on page 3. Banks dedicate 5% profit to fund export-oriented businesses. All the details on page 13.
Well, talking about the story that Kingsley read, blame high cost of foodstuff on custom, police, and the army. You will recall that there was a time there was scarcity of tomato in Nigeria. There were Nigerians who went as far as Burkina Faso to import tomato into Nigeria. And their confession was that the customs and the police in Burkina Faso, in Benin Republic, in Niger and Nigeria, those of Nigeria were the ones that were most expensive, that they had to pay tolls to get their foodstuff across. And I think that is what the minister is alluding to. An Abuja area court has jailed a 38-year-old welder for 2 months. Guess what his offense is? He was given 430,000 in October to construct water tank and doors. And he invested the money in Mavodi Money Mondial. Yes. So he didn't do the work and he absconded. Now the long arm of the law has caught up with him. The judge gave him an option of fine of 10,000 naira after he must have refunded the 430,000 naira of the complainant. Otherwise, he will go to jail for 2 months.
Well, since the community of people helping each other, I'm sure his other fellow investors will come to his aid.
So is the scheme still on?
Well, nobody can tell. It came up in January, and since it came up, nobody apparently has been paid. So
we're entering mid-February.
Yes. Kidnappers struck in Lagos. This time at Isheri, the part of Lagos. Unfortunately, they killed 2 OPC members and another carpenter. However, the police and the army are collectively on their trail. Guess what? They came the same waterways and ran away through the same marsh.
Wow.
All right, Bayo, that's the much that we can take. Just to indicate that it's been a pleasure having you with us through the week. So we'll see you again on Monday.
Monday, before the weekend.
All right. That's the newspaper review segment. We'll take a short break now. When we return, of course, we'll be taking on 2 topics. The first will be the claim of a discovery of a cure for HIV/AIDS.
Hear the call of change. Stand up, Nigeria. Change is here and it's going to stay. Change begins with you. Oh yeah, make we go. Go to so let the change begin from within. Look at your eye, Ogerola. Change begins with you and me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me. Change begins with me.
Hello, dear. You've got the first signs of a sore throat.
Yes, and I'm afraid it could be signs of a sore throat.
Don't you worry. Just act immediately, but not with non-medicated throat sweets. Take an expert product. Take Strepsils. Look at what it does to sore throat germs compared to a throat sweet. Strepsils not only stops the germs from multiplying, it even kills them.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, sore throat. Stop a sore throat early. Take Strepsils.
Ah, mon chéri. Kilo dey by go.
Make the whole Africa begin to dey talk. You no go fit get this one though. Make you still dey look for another. Talkstuff.com na app wey be say e don arrange everything wey concern social media for you for inside one app. Check am now. Make you kiakia go sign up sharparly on top talkstuff.com. Talk dey cheap. Make your own be good.
Welcome back if you just joined us. The program is Good Morning Nigeria. Taking a look at two issues actually today. But we'll start off with the first one, where the claims for a drug, which is to be addressing the issue of treatment as well as cure for HIV. Now for our background report, as a prompt for our conversation this morning. Over the years, scientists have made attempts to develop a drug for HIV/AIDS treatment and cure, but are yet to be successful. The latest report has come from Professor Madueke Ezeibe, a professor of veterinary medicine and clinical virology with Michael Opara University of Agriculture, Umudike, as in Abia State. But how did regulatory agencies receive this news? Let's join Ngozi Chude with this background report.
The National Agency for the Control of AIDS revealed in 2016 that from a high prevalence rate of 5.8% in 2001, Nigeria's spread of HIV/AIDS significantly dropped to less than 3.1%. According to statistics available, this paints a picture of about 3.5 million Nigerians still living with HIV, with Rivers State topping the list at 15.2%. For this milestone, experts agree that the gateway for eradication of the virus is for Nigerians to know their HIV status, so prevention, treatment and care can follow accordingly. But despite this, NACA still claims quite a number of people still do not know their status. However, driven in its commitment towards achieving the global goal of eliminating HIV/AIDS by the year 2030, government embarked on a free HIV counseling program aimed at covering 30 states of the Federation. But of more concern and significance is the production of the drug that will cure the virus. In this direction, in May 2000, Jeremiah Abalaka, a surgeon turned immunologist, claimed to have developed a vaccine for HIV only to be released to the government under negotiated agreement. But this did not see the light of day, as the powers that be rejected the vaccine after failing to meet the required clinical trials. Nearly 17 years after, another breakthrough seems to be underway. Madueke Ezeibe, a professor of veterinary medicine and clinical biology at the Michael Opara University of Agriculture, Umudike, in Abia State, has reportedly developed a drug that will eliminate the virus. Produced with aluminium magnesium silicate, Ezeibe says the drug has the ability to reach all cells and make HIV a conquered organism. Reacting to this, the Center for Disease Control says the claim is yet to pass through the necessary clinical trials, hence could not be certified to be true. Just like Abalaka, this is another effort that might not see the light of the day, going by the reactions to discovery by the regulatory bodies. When will it start? How the claims of this drug be ran and followed through? Why are efforts like these not encouraged in the Nigerian system? These are questions and more begging for answers on Good Morning Nigeria today.
All right, thank you very much, Ngozi Chude, for that elaborate background report. Now we have right here with us in the studios Professor Madueke Ezeibe, who is a professor of veterinary medicine and clinical virology, who is at the center of the latest controversy, shall we say, over the claim of a discovery of a cure for HIV/AIDS. Professor Ezeibe, rather, a pleasure to have you join us on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you.
Okay. Now let's begin. Let's give us an indication of what exactly you say you have done and the efficacy of what the drug is supposed to achieve.
Thank you. There's no mystery about HIV. HIV is like any other virus. They are small. Because of their small size, they can pass what we call physiological barriers and get to some cells that God created so that medicines, remember that what we call medicine is also toxin. So God created some cells that they are not, toxins cannot reach them. So when viruses get there because of their small size, the medicines of large molecules cannot get there. But other infections, other viral infections, when you treat the human being properly, lymphocytes will now go to those cells and remove those infections. But because HIV, what is special about HIV is that it knocks off the lymphocytes. It eats off the lymphocytes. They are no longer there. So when molecules of big size cannot get there, there's nothing to remove it. That is why they say it is in sanctuary cells, because sanctuary is a place of protection. So for you to cure HIV, you need something smaller than the big molecules that can get there. There's something, a group of medicines we call nanoparticles. Nano means that they are small. They are not more than 100 nanometers. The smallest HIV is 110. So any nanoparticle will be able to reach wherever HIV reaches. And we have, by chance, what we call aluminium magnesium silicate. And its molecules are made of nanoparticles, or small particles, that are only 0.96. That is to say, even if you multiply by 100 times, it's still smaller than HIV. There's nowhere HIV is that this one will not be able to get. Now, this nanoparticle, this aluminum nanoparticles, happen to have charges. One end is positively charged, another end is negatively charged, and HIV is positively charged. So all we need to do is to get that use a negative charge end to trap HIV and remove it. Now, we don't have this chemical energy. It's a mineral. We don't have it in Nigeria. It's found in America and India. Even those places, the ones you have find, of course, any mineral, there be impurities. But we have in Nigeria aluminium silicate, which is kaolin. We also have magnesium silicate, which is aluminum, which we call magnesium trisilicate. They are all in Nigeria. They are very rich mineral resources in Nigeria. So all we needed to do from their names, it sounded similar to aluminium, which is what we're looking for. But when we looked into the chemical formula, chemical books, chemistry books, we found that the chemical formula, they look like that. So by trying and error over years, we were able to react aluminium silicate and magnesium silicate to get aluminium magnesium silicate. And with the equation which we have here, I don't know how we can show the equation.
No,
but most important is that the equation has not been doubted. So we started testing it over years. Now, most important thing is here we have to consider: is it true that aluminium magnesium silicate has negative charge end and positive charge end? Is this also true that every virus has a charge and HIV happens to be positively charged? These are facts that are in literature, which can be confirmed. Is it also true that this aluminium magnesium silicate is a safe medicine that has been in use for many, many years? But incidentally, aluminium magnesium silicate is not absorbable. What I mean by absorbable, be passing from the stomach or intestine into blood. So all we needed to do is to find a way of getting it into blood. And of course, literature also has it that simple sugars carry charged molecules across mucous membrane by what we call active transport. So what we need to do is to find active transport for this aluminium silicate so that it can get into blood. And we use dextrose, which is glucose, as a simple sugar to carry the aluminium magnesium silicate across mucous membrane into blood. And once it gets into blood, it circulates to all organs and tissues using its negative charges to trap HIV and they bring it out. Another thing is that all infected cells, including cancer cells, are negatively charged. These are found in literature. So go to literature, confirm them. They are all negatively charged. And since this one has both positive charge end and negative charge end, it's also using its positive end to trap infected cell, including HIV infected cell. So the so-called hidden infections are unmasked and brought out. So those are the background. That's the principle we operate in. Now, having developed aluminium, we call it synthetic aluminium because it's not the pure one. It's the one we synthesize using what is found in Nigeria. Now, having developed it, what remains is that now, like we are talking about following process of drug discovery. Of course, in drug discovery, you must first of all do lab tests and see if it is effective. Then you do animal studies before you come to clinical trials. We have done all this. So first step we did was to patent what we have. And of course, during patenting, you have to write up things, you have to go processes. We were successful. In August 2014, we secured Nigerian patent. The president of Nigeria granted us patents, which means we have passed through all those processes. Now, having done that,
who granted the patent?
Of course, President Jonathan, when he was there, 14th of August 2014.
Is it his responsibility to grant patents?
Yes, it's under the presidency. Patency goes to his head. So it's the right. The president of Nigeria, Jonathan, has therefore granted this thing. That is, we have the certificate. So having got that, what remains nice, the in vitro test, that's testing it in the lab. That's what we made in vitro. First of all, there was no test for HIV. That is why some people who say they develop the drug we give to human beings. No, they have to start with the lab. Over years, we were also able to develop a test which we called direct passive heme agglutination test. It was published in a journal called Health in America. So having done that, we were able now to test our medicine against HIV. We collected samples from hospitals. Now, The sample we collected without treating it with medicine gave us a titer of 4. That's HIV titer of 4. So when we treated it with medicine, the titer rose instead of reducing to 14. Of course, there's no way this medicine would have created a virus. What happened that it destroyed infected cells and unmasked the hidden infections, so that titer went up. So when we repeated the treatment, that is treated 2 times now, the titer came down from 14 to 6.5. That is to say, it has been able to remove the infection. So therefore, that was published also in British Journal of Medicine and Medical Research, 2014. So since then, we have been waiting for clinical trial. While we were waiting, luckily for us, there was a phone call from London. Somebody wanted to try it. I demanded, are you a British or United States Nigerian living in London? Where are you? Where are you from? Say Ondo. By that chance, I was at UI. I said, okay, fine. I was very happy. I didn't know we could do viral load tests in Nigeria. I thought it could be done only in London and those places. So since he was in London, now we'll be able to do something that can establish. You mentioned one of my friends who came up and said he was curing. People were doubting because he didn't do the test. So now that I have opportunity of going to London, say fine. He sent his people from Ondo. They came to UI. I gave the medicine. So I gave for 1 month. Why I gave him for 1 month was because he was in London. My experience with animal studies, 1 week was enough to cure any viral infection. But I gave for 1 month. After 1 week of taking the medication, he went to test and phoned me that the viral load has increased from 500 to 1,000. Do you know, I forgot what I saw in the lab. I panicked. But I said, are you worse than before? He said, no. If you are not worse, continue now. After 1 month, he phoned me that it had come down from 1,000 to 70 per meal. Then I gave him for 2 months. That's the end of it, because he didn't continue to report to me. Now, I got another phone call from Lagos. I demanded, can you do viral load? I don't want controversy. He said, yes, this is done in Nigeria. Yaba, this Nigerian Institute of Medical Research, Yaba. So go and do it. He did. His overall load was 1,000. I gave him now, from experience I got it from London, I gave him for 3 months. Take for 2 months, go for tests, because the test takes 2 weeks to get result. Before the result comes, you have something you are taking. So when he did, the viral load came down from 1,000 to 40. So he continued, and now we had opportunity of getting organized clinical research. When somebody in Abuja, the basic clinic, Abuja Basic Clinic, that's what we call himself, phoned us. He wanted for 10 people. We got to 10 people, and put them on the treatment. That is the one being reported now. Yes. So we put them on the treatment. Now we continue treating. Now that we have seen that this medicine can be taken for a very long time without side effects, so let us go on. First once the viral load is going down. So when we treated for the first month, do you know that all of them, their viral load went up, while CD4 count went down? Remember, I have not mentioned CD4 count since I've been talking about viral load, but now we organize. We are looking at both CD4 count and the viral load. CD4 count that we want to go up went down, while viral load went up, while we wanted it to go down. So the man panicked. I said, cool down, let us see what will happen second month. Second month, CD4 started going up, while viral load started going down. At the end, we had CD4 count of over 3,000. The highest CD4 count a normal human being should have is a range of 500 to 1,500. But now you have 3,000 plus. For women, it was 2,992. Men, 3,000 something and mean. So that is what we call immense lymphocytosis, overpopulation of lymphocytes. Now with this medicine, with their small size and their charges, pursuing HIV, absorbing and now lymphocytes have been liberated from their bondage. They are now over multiplied. There's no more hiding place for HIV. So at 8 months of treatment, 3 of the patients tested HIV negative. I didn't know anybody could test HIV. I was telling them that even if you recover, the virus will have gone, but that antibody will remain there. But after when they went down, the viral load went down below 20, because the limit of the viral load is 20. When it went below 20, you don't say recover, you say undetectable. When they became undetectable, I said, okay, now that they are undetectable, what will be doing? Keep testing HIV positive or negative. Let us see how many months it take us to get negative. immediately after 1 month of going below 20, the 3 people tested HIV negative, both antigen and antibody. Now, the 9th month, 2 more tested negative. The 10th month, all of them tested negative. I started inquiring from their names. Look at their sexes. It happened that those 3 people that tested negative first were all the only 3 men. So that is why our publication, which is the one that's making rounds, we now compare them to the recovery rate of HIV patients among male and female patients. It appears males recover faster because of their faster immune response. Then the following month, those 2 women that recovered the 9th month happen to be HIV positive females. Positive means that they are HIV positive, but they are not. Their CD4 is still within normal range. Those 5 women whose CD4 had gone below 500, which means they are HIV AIDS, are the people who recovered at 10th month, which means both HIV positive and HIV AIDS can be cured. Now, they're talking about following the process of drug recovery. I've talked about patenting, which was the first thing you have to do to secure everything. I talked about in vitro, that is lab, that is a process of drug recovery. You have to do the lab test first. We did it. Now, we did animal study, is my own area. I'm a veterinarian. We have done several studies with this medicine on animal, chicken, rat, dog, sheep and goat, so which have been published, which we are also examined.
Which tests did you do on those animals? On chimpanzees? So
no, I didn't say chimpanzee. I said chicken. I said dogs. I said goats.
Do those animals have HIV?
No, listen. What you are doing in animal study doesn't necessarily to be HIV. Okay. All you are testing the drug, whether it is efficacious, whether it is safe. So having established that it's safe and it's efficacious, the HIV being virus, the same principle that every virus has a charge, and this one, so you can now go over to HIV. So when we got to HIV to do it, HIV, the drug, clinical trials have to be done in phases. Phase 1, we take few individuals to confirm that it's efficacious and that it is safe. We use three people. Remember, I am not a physician. I'm a veterinarian. I shouldn't give medicine to human beings. I never did. I've been working with medical doctors. I read what the NACA people say that I did. No. Out of that 7 people that published that paper, 3 of us are medical doctors. So they are the people who are administering the drug to the human patients.
Yes, because in all your discussion, you're saying when they call us, so I assume the we is a group of yourself
people.
And doctors that actually attended to these people across this nation, and the one who called you from London.
Yes, they are medical doctors. They are people who are administering
Are they doctors from your Okwara University as well, or they are individual doctors in these places of residence, or these people?
For the ones we are reporting now, the people who publish, 2 of them are medical doctors in Michael Okwara University of Agriculture. One is a doctor here in Abuja.
Okay.
So he's the anchor person. So they are the people who are administering it. So when the clinical trial phase 1, the phase 2, we randomize. That is so the control and all those things, we call it blinding. That is to say we wanted to find out the duration of treatment that could give cure. So we used 7 people, treated for 1 person was for 1 month, 4 weeks. Not 1 person was for 4 weeks. Then for 8 weeks we used 4 people. For 12 weeks 1 person. So when we randomize that way, we found out that mean viral load of HIV/AIDS patients treated with the medicine increased from 498 to 1,072. That is in 3.75 weeks. Then before it decreased to 407 after 6.67 weeks. And then it also reduced from to 324.
All right, Dr. Izebe, let me sorry, Prof. Let's get something also clear. you talked about the 10 patients whose cases obviously have been publicized.
Yeah.
How many human beings have you tried this drug, or has your group tried this drug on? How many in total?
Okay, I think nothing less than 500. But what you reported here, those 10 patients are the ones we reported that we sent to the journal for publication.
Okay. Now, when was the last time you treated any of these 10 patients, and what is their condition as at the last time you checked on them, if you did?
The last time that these 10 people that I reported, the last time they were treated, I think was in September 2016. Now, when this January, I phoned the doctor, that's Dr. Aliu, that's a man in Abuja here, who's the person handling them. They're still healthy. But before these people were reported, about almost 2 years ago, there's a particular patient here in Abuja too. It's not a part of this report we are giving now, who was treated. Now, the viral load, when the viral load came back down to 40, we treated for 2 more months and they forgot about it. So I am still in touch with the husband. So every day I phone, madam, it's okay. That is not, we don't like reporting, it's okay. We want to test and get the viral load and get the CD4 count. So, but these other ones now we treated that way. We are still monitoring them for how many, I think, is it September to now, is how many months? So they are still healthy. And like somebody asked me a question, I said, look, if it relapses, I'd be more surprised. It will be unscientific. Because why people relax? Because a journalist was asking me yesterday, do you remember the Mississippi baby who was treated by somebody somewhere? They said it recovered, later it relapsed. So what that means that their antibodies regressed, went off, and they said they were positive, whereas the virus was still hiding somewhere. They use molecular size of the measure of bigger molecular size. This one actually now we're using molecular size that are very smaller, much smaller than HIV. It's unlikely to reoccur. But if it reoccurs, we are not God. We don't. But for now, those people who tested HIV negative, both by antigen and antibody, the conclusion is that they have recovered. But
what is your reaction to the agencies and some other commentators who have dismissed your claims?
Well, I don't think they dismissed. They said it had not been tested. By saying it had not been tested, that means that maybe they are ready to come and test. Yesterday, when I came to Abuja, first I came to see Naka. I was in the office yesterday. Instead, I couldn't see the Director General. I dropped this paper where I have tried to answer all their queries. So I'm hoping that they will react. They will now read through it, and if they have questions, they can ask. We address it.
Well, one of the reasons, at least adduced to the agencies, that you've not gotten appropriate or ethical clearance for some of this validation that you're trying to look into, because why would you go ahead when you've not successfully crossed all the stages for you to actually go through before you start taking on the patients who most times could be vulnerable, and because they're actually desperate to find a cure, some of them might even jettison the idea of their antiretroviral drugs and some other medication they are on already, believing, okay, whatever it is. So where do we place the vulnerability of these people? Should some of these areas, I feel like we have said.
Yeah, like language they use, vulnerable, as if somebody was exploiting them. No, we are not exploiting them. What we do, that if people come, those who try to come on their own, we made it even stricter than what is in the ethics. Ethics say that the person, we must explain to the person, he will understand and then volunteer. We now insist, whether you like it or not, because a HIV person is ready to do whatever. We say, no, you must go and look for a medical doctor of your choice. Convince him, let him read what we are saying. If he agrees that this is work, he will not write to me, he will write to the vice chancellor. You see the process? So no doctor will write to vice chancellor carelessly. He's not vulnerable, he's not sick, so you will not write. So for doctors to be writing.
So for all those ones that you are attending to in Abuja, or your group is attending to in Abuja, they've written to your school.
Of course. To the vice chancellor. Vice chancellor will approve before I attend to you. So there's nothing like exploiting them. We're not even charging money. We're doing this in free of charge. My own money. For this period, I have spent nothing less than 5 million. Nobody has responded me. So what would be my interest if I...
All right, the Honorable Minister of Health is reported to have set up a committee to investigate your claims. Are you ready and willing to submit your findings to the committee?
Very, very willing. You know that most claims of HIV, people don't even say what they are using. They say herb. But I am saying openly again that we are using aluminium mannose-ligate, which we reacted, which means you can go online, review, is it true that this thing has this? So the investigation is already on. Anybody can investigate it. So I am willing to meet the team any day and explain to them. There was one person that from Jamaica that phoned me. He wanted this message. He got it. I gave him my constitution. Go and look for a doctor. He looked for a Jamaican doctor. Jamaican doctor wrote a beautiful letter. According to him, he said that there's no doubt in his mind that we have finally found a solution. It took more than 1 year. We couldn't send message to him because of custom problems. The man still got Jamaican import permit. The message was sent to him in Jamaica. So the world is already accepting what we are doing. Of course, there was also a challenge. They gave to me that I didn't go through the right process to announce my invention. It's not true. I announced this invention first in Atlanta, World Virology Conference in Atlanta 2015, and I was back to Chicago in 2016, that is in May, and November 2016 in Texas. These are world conferences. People come from all over the world. I never announced to the press. It was only my VC after thorough investigation, because a new VC, when we started, he wasn't there. When he came, he said, no, he didn't believe in it. He sent the medical team to come and interview me. After that, I addressed the university senate. I had to address the university management. I had to address the university council. It was then that the man became convinced that, we may have made it. And he mentioned it to the press. I didn't talk to the press.
So, how long has this study taken you before you hit the discovery?
It has been a very long study. You know, remember, we didn't start with HIV. We started with antiviral medicine. If you remember, 2008, there was NTA news, I think February, that Nigerian scientists had discovered medicine against bird flu. You featured it, I think February 16th, 2008. It's the same medicine, it's the same scientist. I started this research in 1995. When I developed this medicine, I've been using it against so many animal diseases. I only ventured into this since this HIV is not a virus. If it's a virus, doesn't it have charge that will be able to cure it? So I ventured into HIV, if I remember now, about 2009 or so. But the problem we had then was, like I said earlier, there was no in vitro.
A review of the literature,
yes,
to see what went on before. Did you undertake an extensive literature review of the research efforts by persons who have been at this? Did you consider that they were wasting their time or they were looking in the wrong direction?
That's what I'm saying now. What they're talking about, the review shows that people are using medicines that have bigger molecules. They're effective. They are good medicines. They can knock off at the same time, it's also causing multiplication of lymphocytes.
So, Professor Ezebe, what do you see happening to what you've done based on what you've shared knowledge with your colleagues out there? You said there was a presentation in Texas, there was another in Chicago, right? What were their responses to your own knowledge and sharing?
Wonderful. Like I said, I think it was in Chicago. They asked me a question. Nanoparticles, small particles that have charges, that they are using the opposite charges to trap HIV. I also told that because they're silicates, they multiply lymphocytes. We have also demonstrated that lymphocytes now went up from 400 or something, which was where we started, to 3,000. And anybody who's challenging me to disprove it. If the lymphocytes had multiplied up to 3,000, where will any virus hide?
Proven beyond all doubt medically, people should avoid calyx intercourse.
Abu Malik, he said, well, to me, this is a welcome development, but to verify his claim, let's try it on a volunteer victim.
All right, so those are some of the twists that we are taking. Prof, as I read a moment ago, Chris Awungamba saying that your claim is spurious, according to him, because, again, he says your explanation of HIV pathology is not scientific. What's your reaction?
I don't know what he said. He said it's not scientific. He didn't say why he thinks it's not scientific. If he had said why it's not scientific, I didn't even discuss HIV pathology. I didn't say so. I said that HIV research can cross physiological barriers to go to cells that medicines cannot reach. Is that what he's saying? It's not scientific. I don't know. It's not pathology. It's not pathology.
All right. Professor Maduike Ezebe is a professor of veterinary medicine and clinical virology at Michael Okpara University of Agriculture, that's Sumudike in Abia State. Professor Ezebe, we'd like to thank you for being with us on Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you very much.
All right. Okay, we'll take a short break now. When we return, we'll continue with this conversation. We have other guests who will be speaking to aspects of what we've been discussing.
Chairman of all chairmen. Oh, let me watch.
Media operatives. Date 6th February to 3rd March 2017. Registration 100,000 naira with accommodation. Also 1 week intensive course in advanced management techniques for executive officers, CEOs, COOs, managers and heads of admin. Date 13th of March to 17th of March 2017. Registration 20,000 naira. Another 4 weeks course on principles and practice of marketing for marketing heads in radios and television houses, public relation agencies, media heads in advertising, brand support managers, media brokers and heads of corporate affairs. Date 20th of March to 14th April 2017. Registration 100,000 naira with accommodation. All courses will take place at NTA Television College Rayfield Jos. For more inquiries, call 08069809807 or call 07036607155 or email us at ntacollege@gmail.com. NTA Television College, training you to be the best you want to be.
All right, you're welcome back. But if you just joined us, it's Good Morning Nigeria, and we are reaching you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. We just signed off a moment ago Professor Maduike Ezebe, who's made a claim as to the discovery of a cure for HIV and AIDS. But we are having with us here again in the Abuja studios 3 other guests who are also experts on this subject matter and have also had their reactions to the claim. But of course, they will be elaborating on aspects of what Professor
researchers to do research on HIV. If they do the proper thing, they go through the right processes. NACA is certainly not convinced that the claim for cure is valid. The claim for cure is clearly flawed. If you look at the study itself, if you look at the way the study was done, was conducted, there was no ethical approval. They didn't go through the National Human Research Ethics Council. They didn't go through an ethical body. You cannot just say that you've done a study based on ethics simply by saying that you follow the Helsinki principle. That's not enough. If we look at HIV, the way HIV is, when you have the infection, it takes a while before you become sick. So saying that you've taken healthy volunteers and they've remained volunteers is not good enough. I was reading through some of the articles yesterday, and some of the statements that were made, such as the patient didn't have detectable HIV viral load, and therefore this meant that the patient was cured, cannot stand in any academic establishment. And the reason why we think this is very risky is because you are dealing with an infection that is deadly. You're dealing with an infection where people die. They transmit the infection to their loved ones, to babies. It has a clear-cut public health impact. So to come out and say that you have a cure without going through the right processes is really, really wrong. I would challenge the researcher to go back and do the right thing. And the right thing is to do proper in vitro studies and then go on to animal studies and then seek permission to do human studies through an ethical review. These studies so far that have been done, when I was going through the papers, for instance, a lot of the references refer to the same group of people, to the same group of researchers who were doing the same work. And in science, I know people are desperate for a cure, and there's a lot of work going on both within the country and outside. But until that's being validated, we shouldn't be coming out to make a claim for cure. We are actually harming people, and people could die as a result. So that's the reason why we came out with the advert. We want to make it very clear to our patients with HIV that this is really premature. What we need to do is to go back right from the beginning and do things properly. If you have a headache, you go to buy paracetamol. The reason why you are confident that paracetamol would work for your headache is because it's gone through a defined process. And it's the same with any other drug. You cannot jump the process.
All right, Dr. Sani Aliu, thank you very much. Dr. Chike Hekwazu, you were also signatory to the disclaimer that I referred to earlier and about which Dr. Sani Aliu has spoken. He says, look, this is not a put down the efforts of Nigerian researchers and scientists. But let's get to your take on this. I mean, why must everything follow, the processes that are established, say, by the West? I mean, couldn't there be some serendipity, as we say in social science, although this is medicine?
Yeah, the first thing to say, Kingsley, is, I think we would be the most excited people if a group of Nigerian scientists were to find a cure for AIDS. But science is universal, and these universal principles are there for a reason. So I think the first thing to say to Nigerians, because remember there are 3 million people infected by this virus out there in Nigeria. At the moment, there is no cure for AIDS. I think that is. I think that has to get out there. It's an unambiguous statement. There is no cure for AIDS. However, we've made tremendous progress since the 1990s and the 1980s when the colleague you referred to, Dr. Abalaka, in 1999 and 98, when he made those claims and they got a lot of emotion around and people were desperate, there was no treatment. Now we actually have a treatment for AIDS that prolongs life, and people have a life expectancy almost as normal. We are making tremendous effort in government to bring in more people into the care pathway. That treatment is free to members of the public across public sector facilities. So this claim is not neutral. When you make a claim for a cure for a disease like this, you take people out of a treatment pathway that enables them a healthy life and take them down a dead end, really. And so I think it's important. Our role as NCDC, our primary role is to protect the health of Nigerians. The primary role of a doctor is to do no harm. Before treating, we make a vow to do no harm. So in this particular case, like my colleague said, the colleague has simply not gone through the processes required for us to get to the stage of making a claim to cure. And the peer review process on which all science works means that you bring out your data, you make it available to the scientific community. It's not a beauty contest on NTA or any media house. You take it to your peers. The peers review the evidence and they make a value judgment. And then you make it available to the next set of peers, and it gradually gains acceptance. Now, it's a tough process sometimes, and we are happy to support that, but the colleague must go back and go through those processes. The reason is no chemical can be given to humans without our being sure that it causes no harm. So it's the universality of science. I know emotionally we would like something to emerge out of Nigeria, but sadly, if you're a professor and you have decided to obey the ethics of scientific process, I haven't even gone down to the ethics of medicine, just the ethics of a scientific process, then you have to be bound by that framework. And there are many Nigerian groups working on similar endeavors, and we will continue to support those efforts.
Thank you very much, Dr. Hekwazu. Now, we also have Professor Babatunde Salako, who's the Director General, Nigerian Institute of Medical Research. And incidentally, the Minister of Health had asked your agency alongside College of Medicine to actually look into these claims. Now, what exactly is a professor is he leaving out? If he had said, he had spoken with some of his colleagues, or like Dr. Hekwazu said, sharing knowledge or peer review from time to time. He said he had done that with the Senate, he had done that with the school management, he had done that with the council. He also even posited that he was outside the country with colleagues in the field of virology. What else is he leaving out? What exactly is the procedure for him to take?
Thank you very much. All that he had done was not in line with the global practice, best practice, when you talk about research. Yes, he said he did animal studies, but he's a veterinarian. And so his studies that he did with his animals, what he's quoting, for this particular publication to have been accepted, he needed to go back to the lab, pick animals that are meant for that study. For example, he should have taken mice or rats and start with them to look at toxicity, to look at metabolism of to look at pharmacokinetics of the drugs within the animal. And when you are sure that you are not testing whether it's efficacious, you are looking for safety and the properties of the drug. And when you are sure that this is not toxic to the animal, then you can begin to think about it. That is what is called the preclinical trials. Before you get to human being at all, then you start with the phase 1 trial, where you look for volunteers, people who do not have the disease, but who are ready to test the drug, so that you can test in them, coming from the background that the drug is not toxic to the animal. Of course, the animals should be killed after giving them. You needed to do what we call acute toxicity test, giving the drugs to the animal within the first 24 hours. Kill the animals, harvest the organs, take them under the microscope, and let the pathologists look at it. Then you need to take blood from the animal and look at the chemistries of, just like we human beings can do tests from blood. You can do all of that. And you can tell if it's affected its kidney function, it's affected its blood cells and co. When you can say that, oh, this is not happening, then you move on to the volunteer. He said he gave to 2 people or so. They were not really carved out as in a research for this purpose. They were trying to just show that their drugs can work. And I want to think that it's more of an afterthought to say that, oh, we did animal, we did this. He just assumed that since he was using the drug in some of his animals, that too equate to animal studies. Now, the volunteers have to take the drug for a certain period, a month or so, and then you do all the tests that, like kidney, liver, heart, including ECG and all of that. And you are able to say that this drug can do no harm to an individual if he takes it. That's when you move on to those who have the disease. And you also need to take a small sample of those who have the disease, which is what he has done. But before you do that, there is a rule that you need to ask for what we call ethical permission. Their own institution should have ethical permission. But what they did was to write to the Vice Chancellor. That is quite wrong. They should have an RB within the university where you send your protocol, properly written protocol, send to that committee. The committee will look at it and send it to other people within the university or outside if they like. Then they will look at it and say that, yes, this can be done, is unlikely to cause harm to the people, and therefore we think the research is ethical, you should continue. He didn't do that, and he has no certificate for that. When you don't do that, whatever result you get, even if it turned out to work well later, cannot be accepted in the scientific community. And that is what we're talking about. We have not said his drug works or it doesn't work. We are saying that the process that he has used to come to this conclusion is wrong. And there is no way you use a wrong process and you get a right answer.
All right, well, gentlemen, there's an aspect that he was trying to explain. He was talking about aluminum, some nano stuff. I'm sure you listened to him while he was in the studios and you were at the reception. And how he described the HIV is that you needed some smaller molecule to attack it, to penetrate and then overwhelm HIV and then also attack other opportunistic ailments. Let's, for the purposes of this conversation, for the understanding of our audience, is this an issue that is likely researchable, assuming that is the case? Who takes this up? Dr. Sonny Alio, let's begin with you.
So thank you. The explanations that were put in by the researcher, I think, are flawed. So if you look at antiretrovirals, which are medications that we use for treating HIV, they have specific targets within the life cycle of the cell. So, and we have a group of medications that have specific functions. So you have nucleoside reverse transcriptase, non-nucleoside reverse transcriptase, protease, etc. So science first of all goes in to find out how exactly does it affect the virus? How does it kill the virus? Which part of the life cycle does it affect? The authors were talking about nanoparticles. Nanoparticles, yes, there's a lot of research going on about nanoparticles, but nanoparticles are actually being used as carrier molecules to carry drugs into certain sites. So, for example, there was a study where they took efavirenz, which is one of the components of antiretrovirals, binded it to a nanoparticle, and showed that you have higher concentrations of efavirenz in certain sites. Going back to his study, because his study was not controlled, it wasn't randomized, we don't even know, A, whether those few patients that went through his study were on antiretrovirals or not. We don't know how much of the drug they were having. We don't really know their normal progression in terms of HIV. We don't know whether the drug they were giving was actually affecting the viral load per se, or there was a problem with the assay they were using. And that's the issue. If you're going to do science, you do proper science. You don't come out and start making claims of a cure based on a flawed basis. And you cannot confuse issues by talking about positive and negative charges, etc. No. Tell us exactly how does it work in the first instance, and then if you're going to use it on humans, get the necessary permission. You cannot jump from point A to point Z. There's no rush here. I know people need a cure. People with HIV are desperate for a cure, and it's understandable, but we do have medications at the moment that are working and that are saving lives. And the main risk of going down this route, it's not just that the international community, of which Nigeria is, because people keep on saying, well, this is Nigeria, we need to support our researchers. Fine, yes, but we are still part of the international community. We need to maintain our credibility as scientists, and therefore whatever we do, we need to make sure that it follows a defined process. So that's really my take on this.
All right, Dr. Hekwezu, let's get your comment on this.
Quick comment. You know, you're right. I was listening outside, and you know, truly, I was shocked when he said there have been over 500 Nigerians that he has given this medicine already. And you know, I wonder whether that might even be an underestimate of how many people are taking this. A drug that hasn't been approved to be used in humans, hasn't been approved by NAFDAC, hasn't been approved by any of the treatment agencies. So, you know, I think, I know there's been a lot of skepticism about government, but, you know, we have government agencies with the people with the responsibility and the skills to protect Nigerians. And it's critical that, you know, we go through the right process. It's not, these are not emotional decisions. A clinical, what he describes as a clinical trial of 10 people. I mean, you can't test the foodstuff on 10 people. Clinical trials are extensive endeavors that require lots of colleagues to reach those conclusions. And a disease like HIV is not trivial. So we really need, you know, to understand that these processes take time, and we encourage the scientists, as well as others working in these fields. Listen, if we accept an ethical framework of science, let's go through the process. I think my colleagues, especially in NIMA and NACA, are there to encourage scientists to go through the process. Our role is to protect Nigerians from the ill effects of things like this. And we already have our work cut out for us. So we don't need new challenges being introduced into the population of drugs or particles that we don't understand their benefits or their harm. So I really, this is an important point. We face many challenges in Nigeria, and we don't want to increase that burden by ourselves by introducing substances into popular use without going through the right processes.
Oh, okay, I was wondering, Professor Salako, what is the current state of research on HIV and AIDS? What is missing now in the search either for a vaccine or for a cure since treatment is available?
Well, search for cure is continuous, and so many people have made claims to cure in the past, and they haven't really found them to be true. As we speak, there are people in their labs, there are people on the field still looking for cures. There are vaccines here and there that are being tested, but none really has been shown to work as we speak. So a lot of research is going on, and because we have drugs that help patients, almost like treating hypertension or diabetes, that's the way HIV is now. You can control it and people can live with it. But we have little problems like emerging resistance to some of these drugs. That's why we will need more drugs if we can go through processes and develop new drugs. Why not? We will support all that. We have issues with drugs and drug resistance that is not make some of the patients to get better, and research is also going on that. We just concluded one of such trials in Naima, and the presentation of the result has been made to the NACA people and the ministry and those who are supposed to use such information. So really many research is going on HIV, but the forefront is looking for a cure for HIV. So when somebody comes up to say, I've gotten a cure, it's something that reverberates all over the place. And people who are sick, who really wanted cure, will not be deterred by what we are saying now, as long as they think they can get the drug. It's almost like taking an advantage of the situation.
I'm just wondering, Dr. Sani Ali and the other guests, what's your reaction to the comments made by some observers who say that there's been this somewhat dismissive attitude because the claim is coming from a vet doctor, and there is a rivalry between those in human medicine and vet medicine?
Oh, no, not at all. If you look at a lot of the research that's going on in HIV in the world, it's not being done necessarily by doctors. Yes, you need a doctor to support a study in humans who could be a principal investigator or a co-investigator. But no, you certainly don't need doctors per se in order to have a drug going through the process of validation. So our argument is not based at all as to whether the author or his colleagues are veterinary doctors or they are human doctors. No. Our argument is solely based on the need for us to do the right thing before we come to a conclusion, especially if that conclusion would end up causing more harm than good. And I'm afraid at the moment that's what's happening, because I'm fairly certain, just like my colleagues from NCDC said, there will be patients coming off their antiretrovirals and going on to try starting this medication. And more worryingly, you cannot have 500 people on a drug that hasn't been registered for that purpose. You can't. It's wrong. It's illegal. So again, I would say this is nothing to do with rivalry. We are encouraging Nigerian scientists, including basic science researchers, because most of the cures are actually from basic science researchers. They don't come from medical doctors, to do the right thing. Go through the right process. We are here to support you all along, but it needs to be credible. It needs to be acceptable, not only to Nigerians, but to the international community as well.
All right, Dr. Lee, so just at least briefly, how soon can NACA and as well as other agencies that are supposed to be looking into this? Well, Professor Ezebi could have jumped the guns in some certain quarters. How soon do you think we can actually get to see him to help him be on the right path for certifying this claims that this process of this drug?
So I'm sure the researcher knows the right thing to do. Clearly outlined.
Trying to meet NACA, as in coming to NACA yesterday, but
well, yes, he could certainly meet NACA. He could certainly meet NACA, but what NACA will not do is to validate a study that hasn't gone through the right process. Because the main risk here is that people will look at it as if it's been accepted by NACA as a true treatment, and it isn't. You're either a scientist or you're not. If you're a scientist, then follow the right process. Go through the necessary hoops. These hoops are there for a good reason, and they've been done for years on end. And that's why we have drugs that work very well, whether they are for hypertension or for their diabetes or for whatever. It's because they've gone through a rigorous process. And NACA would support you to go through that rigorous process to make sure that your drug works, it is not harmful, and it is actually not interfering with the test that needs to be done to monitor patients. But all this hasn't been done. It hasn't been randomized. It hasn't been blinded. You don't have proper ethical approval. And the definition of a cure itself is flawed. Definition is not based on virological suppression. It isn't. And if you look at some of the studies, like the May 2015 study, clearly one of the statements that was made.
It must go back to the basics.
Yes.
All right. Director General, National Agency for the Control of AIDS, Dr. Sani Alu, thank you very much for coming on the program this morning. We also like to thank Professor Babatunde Lawal Salako, Director General, Nigeria Institute of Medical Research. Thank you very much for your insights. Of course, not forgetting Dr. Chikwe Ihekwazu, Chief Executive Officer, Nigeria Center for Disease Control. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, to our companion segment. Well, before the companion segment, of course, we'll take a look at sports because we said we're having a second topic to look into what happened at AFCON 2017.
That's correct. Blessing, of course, it was the case that Nigeria, again, was absent at the greatest soccer fiesta on the continent. Nigeria wasn't there. Cameroon ultimately lifted the trophy, beating Egypt by 1 goal to 0. Of course, this has generated quite a lot of reactions with regard to what is wrong with our soccer at the moment and what needs to be done, because there are a number of competitions still lined up. The next edition of AFCON will be hosted, of course, by the current champions, Cameroon, and we still have qualifiers for the 2018 World Cup taking place in Russia.